Every organization, every team, every movement rises or falls on leadership. But here's the truth. Leadership is not about titles, authority, or the corner office. Leadership is about service. It's about creating an environment where people feel safe, valued, and inspired to give their best. We don't follow leaders because they're in charge. We follow leaders because they make us feel like we belong. So the question is not, how do we become successful leaders? The real question is, why do people choose to follow us at all? In this talk, we'll explore the principles behind Simon Sinek's Guide to Leadership, the mindset that shifts leadership from a position of power to a daily practice of responsibility. Because leadership is not a rank, it's a choice, and today, I want to show you why the best leaders eat last. Leadership is not a title, it's a choice. Too often, we confuse leadership with authority, position, or hierarchy. We look at someone in a senior role and assume they are the leader. But Simon Sinek reminds us that leadership is not granted by a promotion or a job description. It is earned by behavior, by mindset, and by the way we show up for others. A title may give you power over people, but it will never guarantee that people will follow you. What truly makes someone a leader is their decision to step up, take responsibility, and create an environment where others can thrive. Think about the difference between a boss and a leader. A boss manages tasks, while a leader inspires people. A boss demands respect, but a leader earns it. The distinction lies in the choice to lead. Every day, in small moments, we are faced with opportunities to choose leadership. It could be as simple as helping a teammate who feels stuck, standing up for someone who isn't being heard, or staying late to support your team during a tough deadline. These are not actions defined by a title. They are actions defined by the willingness to put others first and to set an example. Simon Sinek often says that leadership is about service. It's about asking, how can I make the people around me feel safe, valued, and inspired? That is a daily choice. It's easy to hide behind a title and give orders, but it takes courage to put yourself out front, to admit mistakes, and to take responsibility when things go wrong. Real leaders don't look for recognition when things succeed. They look for accountability when things fail. That's the choice that sets them apart. What makes leadership so powerful is that it can come from anywhere. You don't need to be the CEO to lead. You don't need a team reporting to you to lead. You can lead from the middle of the organization, from the back of the classroom, from the sidelines of a project. Because leadership is not about being in charge. It's about caring for those in your charge. When people see you consistently choosing to act with integrity, to support others, to prioritize the collective good over personal gain, they begin to trust you, and trust is the currency of leadership. We can see this in everyday life. Consider a teammate who has no official authority, but is always the one others turn to for guidance. Why? Because that person makes the choice to listen, to help, and to support. They don't need a title to lead. They lead because of who they are and how they show up. Over time, their influence grows far beyond their job description, and people willingly follow them. That is the essence of leadership as a choice. It's not about what you are told you are, it's about what you decide to be. At its core, leadership is a responsibility, not a privilege. It's the responsibility to create a vision others want to be part of, to create a culture where people feel safe, and to consistently model the behaviors you expect from others. The best leaders understand that their choices ripple outward. When they choose empathy, they build loyalty. When they choose humility, they build respect. When they choose courage, they build inspiration. And when they choose consistency, they build trust. The most dangerous belief is thinking that leadership belongs only to those at the top. That belief discourages initiative, stifles innovation, and creates fear. But when people embrace the truth that leadership is a choice available to everyone, organizations flourish. Because suddenly, leadership is no longer limited to the few with titles. It becomes the responsibility of the many who are willing to choose it. Start with why clarity of purpose inspires trust. Every action we take, every decision we make, has a reason behind it, but not everyone takes the time to articulate that reason. Too many organizations and individuals focus on what they do and how they do it, but they forget the most important question: why? Simon Sinek's work reminds us that people are not inspired by products, services, or even strategies alone. They are inspired by the purpose that drives them. When leaders start with why, they give others a reason to believe, not just a reason to comply. Clarity of purpose is powerful because it creates connection. When a leader communicates why they exist, why the team's work matters, and why the sacrifices are worth it, they spark something deeper in people. It transforms work from a transaction into a mission. Employees stop showing up just for a paycheck and start showing up because they feel they are part of something bigger than themselves. That sense of shared purpose builds trust, because people know the leader is not simply chasing numbers or accolades, but is committed to a cause that benefits everyone. Trust doesn't come from authority or from telling people what to do. Trust comes from consistency between words and actions, from showing that decisions align with the stated purpose. If a company says their why is to care for customers but cuts corners on quality, employees and customers alike lose faith. On the other hand, when actions consistently reflect purpose, even when it costs more, takes longer, or requires sacrifice, trust deepens. People are willing to follow leaders who live their why, not just talk about it. In every great movement, clarity of why has been the unshakable foundation. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't inspire people by saying, "I have a plan." He inspired them by saying, "I have a dream." That dream was the why, the purpose that galvanized millions into action. The same is true in organizations. The most successful leaders don't just tell people what the company makes. They communicate why the company exists. This isn't marketing fluff, it's the emotional glue that binds people together. Clarity of purpose also acts as a compass in uncertain times. When challenges arise, when markets shift, or when crises hit, leaders who are clear about why they do what they do can make decisions that stay true to their values. Their teams feel reassured because even when the path changes, the purpose doesn't. That consistency creates stability and confidence, which are essential for trust. On the other hand, leaders who lack clarity often leave their teams feeling lost, confused, or even betrayed, because decisions seem reactive and inconsistent. Starting with why also empowers others to take ownership. When people understand the purpose, they don't need constant supervision. They can make decisions that align with it. They can innovate, adapt, and problem solve without waiting for permission, because they know the guiding principle behind their work. This not only increases trust, but also unleashes creativity and resilience. Leaders who start with why don't just inspire followers, they create more leaders. At the heart of it, people don't buy into what you do, they buy into why you do it. They don't stay loyal because of features or perks, they stay loyal because of belief. Clarity of purpose is what transforms groups of individuals into teams and teams into movements. It gives meaning to the struggle, motivation in the hard days, and joy in the victories. When leaders consistently start with why, they build trust that lasts beyond circumstances, beyond setbacks, and beyond the leader themselves. Leaders create safety so teams can thrive. At the heart of every strong and lasting organization is a culture where people feel protected, valued, and supported. Simon Sinek emphasizes that leadership is not about driving people harder
or pushing them to their limits. It is about creating an environment where they feel secure enough to give their best.
When people feel safe, they are more willing to take risks, share ideas, and contribute fully, because they know their leaders will not punish them for mistakes, but will support them through learning and growth. Think of it like a circle of safety. In any team or workplace, external threats and pressures will always exist. Competition, changing markets, economic challenges, or unexpected setbacks. But when leaders extend a circle of safety around their people, those external threats become manageable. Inside that circle, individuals know that their leaders and teammates have their backs. They don't waste energy looking over their shoulders or protecting themselves from internal politics. Instead, they use that energy to innovate, solve problems, and collaborate, because they feel secure in the knowledge that they belong. Trust is built when leaders consistently put the needs of their people first. It is easy for a leader to prioritize numbers, short-term gains, or personal recognition. But when leaders sacrifice their people to protect metrics, they erode trust and weaken the team. On the other hand, when leaders sacrifice personal comfort or even short-term results to protect their people, loyalty grows. Employees begin to trust that their leader truly cares, and in return, they give more of themselves. That is how cultures of resilience and commitment are built. History and everyday examples show us this principle in action. In the military, leaders are often judged not by how many orders they give, but by how well they protect their people. The phrase "officers eat last" reflects a mindset of service and sacrifice, where leaders ensure their team is taken care of before themselves. In business, the same principle applies. When leaders take the blame for failures and give credit for successes, they create a safe environment where people are willing to contribute ideas and take initiative without fear. A safe environment does not mean an easy environment. Leaders still set high standards and push their teams to grow, but they do it in a way that challenges without threatening. Safety means people know they won't be humiliated for speaking up, won't be abandoned if they stumble, and won't be punished for being honest. That sense of psychological safety is one of the strongest predictors of high-performing teams. When people feel they can be themselves without fear of judgment, collaboration improves, creativity flourishes, and commitment deepens. Creating safety requires consistency. A leader cannot preach openness, but then punish mistakes. They cannot promise support, but disappear when challenges arise. Teams watch what leaders do more than what they say, and they measure safety by consistent action. A leader who listens, defends their team in difficult times, and treats everyone with fairness sends a clear message. You are safe here, you belong here, and your contribution matters. When safety is present, people thrive. They take ownership of problems, support one another, and achieve more than they thought possible. The opposite is also true. When safety is absent, people shut down, protect themselves, and withdraw their best effort. Leaders have the power to shape which reality their team lives in, not by control or authority, but by the daily choice to protect, support, and serve. Empathy is the foundation of true leadership. The essence of leadership is not in commanding others, but in understanding them. A leader's greatest strength is not technical skill or strategic brilliance. It is the ability to connect with people on a human level. Empathy allows leaders to see beyond performance metrics and job titles, and to recognize the person behind the role. When people feel seen, heard, and understood, they give their best not because they have to, but because they want to. Simon Sinek often highlights that leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. This begins with empathy. It means noticing when someone is struggling, listening without judgment, and offering support even when it's inconvenient. Too often, leaders get caught up in deadlines, numbers, and results, forgetting that those results are created by people. When leaders make empathy a priority, they build trust, loyalty, and a culture of belonging. Empathy does not require grand gestures, it requires presence. It is as simple as asking someone how they are doing and genuinely listening to the answer. It is about giving people the space to voice their concerns and acknowledging their feelings instead of brushing them aside. This doesn't mean lowering standards or excusing poor performance. It means recognizing that behind every performance issue, there may be a human challenge that needs to be understood before it can be addressed. Empathy creates an environment where people feel safe to be honest, which in turn allows leaders to address problems more effectively. Consider the difference between a leader who ignores the signs of burnout and one who notices and responds. The first pushes their team until people disengage or quit, while the second acknowledges the strain and looks for ways to support the team, whether by redistributing workload, offering encouragement, or simply recognizing their effort. The latter earns long-term trust and commitment because people remember how they were treated during difficult times. Empathy also strengthens collaboration. When leaders model empathy, they encourage their teams to practice it with one another. People become more willing to listen, to compromise, and to support each other. Instead of competing for recognition or protecting themselves from blame, they focus on collective success. Teams built on empathy don't just work together, they care for each other, and that care fuels resilience and creativity. The absence of empathy, on the other hand, creates toxic cultures. Leaders who dismiss emotions or treat people like replaceable parts may achieve results in the short term, but they breed fear, resentment, and disengagement. Over time, people stop sharing ideas, stop taking risks, and stop caring. Without empathy, leadership becomes empty authority, and teams function out of obligation rather than inspiration. Empathy requires humility. It means admitting that as a leader, you don't have all the answers and that you rely on the perspectives and experiences of others. It requires slowing down enough to listen, even when you are busy. It requires patience to understand before reacting. True leaders see empathy not as weakness, but as strength, because it allows them to connect, inspire, and guide more effectively than authority ever could. The most influential leaders throughout history were not those who demanded obedience, but those who understood the hopes, fears, and struggles of their people. They built movements not through fear, but through connection. The same principle applies in organizations today. When leaders put empathy at the center of their leadership, they don't just manage people, they inspire them. They don't just achieve goals, they build communities where people feel valued and motivated to give their best. Great leaders serve, they don't demand. Leadership is often misunderstood as a position of authority where the leader gives orders and others follow. But true leadership, as Simon Sinek often emphasizes, is about service. It is not about being at the top of the pyramid. It is about standing at the bottom, holding the weight, and lifting others up. When leaders adopt the mindset of service, they shift from thinking about what they can get from their people to what they can give to their people. This reversal of perspective is what transforms good leaders into great ones. Serving as a leader does not mean doing everyone's work or catering to every request. It means creating the conditions where others can succeed. It means removing obstacles, providing resources, offering guidance, and protecting people from unnecessary harm or pressure. Leaders who serve ask themselves daily, how can I help my team thrive? What do they need from me to do their best work? Instead of demanding loyalty, they earn it by showing loyalty. Instead of demanding respect,
they gain it by giving respect. When leaders choose to serve, they build trust. People trust leaders who consistently put the needs of their team before their own comfort or personal gain. That trust becomes the glue that holds teams together, especially in times of stress or uncertainty. For example, a leader who takes responsibility for a team's failure instead of shifting blame shows that they are willing to absorb the hit for the sake of their people. In return, their people become more committed and more willing to go the extra mile. That cycle of service and trust creates a powerful culture of loyalty and dedication. On the other hand, leaders who demand obedience, recognition, or results without serving their teams create resentment and fear. People may follow out of necessity, but they won't give their best. They will do the minimum required and protect themselves first, because they know their leader will not protect them. Over time, this erodes morale and damages performance. A demanding leader may achieve compliance, but a serving leader inspires commitment. The difference is profound. Examples of servant leadership can be found everywhere. In the military, the idea that officers eat last is not just symbolic. It is a daily reminder that those in leadership roles exist to serve their people. In business, leaders who check in with their employees, invest in their growth, and take time to understand their challenges create workplaces where people feel valued and motivated. Service is not weakness. It is strength that builds resilience, loyalty, and sustainable success. Service also means making sacrifices. Leaders sometimes have to give up recognition so that their teams can shine. They may have to work longer hours behind the scenes to ensure others have what they need. They may have to take on criticism publicly to shield their people. These sacrifices are not glamorous, but they are the mark of true leadership. People remember the leaders who stood by them, defended them, and invested in them, long after they forget the ones who simply issued commands. Ultimately, serving as a leader creates a culture where people look out for one another. When leaders model service, it spreads throughout the team. Team members begin to help each other, support each other, and share responsibility for success. This kind of environment doesn't just achieve goals, it creates fulfillment, pride, and belonging. Leadership is not about demanding that others carry the weight. It is about carrying it for them until they are strong enough to carry it themselves. The best leaders inspire people to believe, not just obey. Obedience may get short-term results, but belief is what drives lasting change, loyalty, and extraordinary performance.
Simon Sinek teaches us that true leadership is not about forcing compliance through authority or fear, but about awakening something deeper in people. The sense that their work matters, that they are part of something meaningful, and that their efforts contribute to a greater cause.
When people believe, they don't just follow instructions. They bring passion, creativity, and resilience to everything they do. Obedience relies on control. Leaders who depend on obedience use rules, pressure, or hierarchy to ensure things get done. But this kind of leadership often creates a culture of fear, where people focus on avoiding mistakes rather than reaching for excellence. They do only what is required and nothing more. Belief, on the other hand, unleashes energy. When people believe in their leader's vision and values, they go beyond the call of duty. They take initiative, they innovate, and they support one another, not because they are told to, but because they want to. Inspiring belief begins with authenticity. Leaders must clearly communicate their vision and live it out consistently. Words alone are not enough. People watch what leaders do. If a leader speaks about integrity but cuts corners, or talks about valuing people but ignores them, belief disappears. But when leaders embody their values and demonstrate commitment through action, people see authenticity and respond with trust. Belief grows when people know that what their leader stands for is real.
History shows the power of belief in shaping outcomes far greater than obedience ever could. Movements that changed the world were not built on orders, they were built on conviction. Martin Luther King Jr. inspired belief in a dream of equality, and people rallied not because they were required to, but because they believed in the vision. In business, companies that communicate a powerful sense of purpose attract employees and customers who share that belief. People don't line up overnight for a new product simply because they are told to. They do it because they believe in the brand and what it represents. In the workplace, inspiring belief transforms culture. Teams where belief is strong are marked by high engagement, trust, and resilience. When setbacks occur, people don't give up. They persist because they believe in the mission. When challenges arise, they support one another because they believe the work is worth it. This kind of culture cannot be created through authority alone. It requires leaders who know how to connect with hearts and minds, not just hands. The responsibility of a leader is not simply to drive performance, but to cultivate belief. That means being clear about why the work matters, recognizing contributions so people know their efforts are meaningful, and creating a sense of belonging so that everyone feels part of the journey. It also means showing vulnerability and humanity, because people are more likely to believe in leaders who are real than in leaders who try to appear perfect. Obedience is fragile, it collapses when pressure is removed. Belief is enduring. It continues even when the leader is not present. That is why the best leaders focus on inspiring belief. They don't settle for people doing what they're told. They aim for people who choose to act because they are convinced of the mission. This kind of leadership builds organizations and movements that outlast individuals, because the belief lives on in those who carry it forward.